All right, party people. So I want to introduce you to my new friend, who I'm going to call Truffle Butter. I don't know where I heard that. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to name him Truffle Butter because I feel like when it comes to guns, or especially with cars, especially if they got a sports car like a Camaro or something, or like it's a sinister Camaro or the Terminator Cobra, and that always is just so predictable. I just kind of felt like Truffle Butter was kind of a cute name for this. Just get right to it. Boom. That's what she looks like right there. Urban Gray CZ Shadow 2. So if you follow the very first link in the video description or the link that's in the pinned comments, there will be a complete build list for different parts and some of my favorite parts. They're doing their very best to keep a lot of things in stock, and they actually have some CZ Shadow 2s in stock. Now, I can't guarantee they'll stay in stock, especially after today's video. So what comes in the box of Truffle Butter? Well, one, you get the gun, obviously. Looks dead sexy. It does come with 3 magazines. I have dummy rounds in it right now because I was dry firing it. But yeah, 3 magazines, and the magazines hold. It's kind of interesting because these are interchangeable between the 40 Smith & Wesson as well as the 9mm. So on this side, it says 17 rounds 9mm or 12 rounds of 40 cal. Very fascinating. Also, you get some tools. These tools right here, will take off your grips, and they will also take off this extended mag release, which we'll cover a little bit more in a second. You also get a bunch of these buffers, which I'll show you what those are for. And then you also get a larger safety selector. Back here, you get your standard lock, your cleaning kit, and then you do get a very detailed instruction manual. Very nice. So looking at the gun up close, you got some beautiful front serrations up here. So CZ Shadow 2. You got some nice rear serrations back there. On the top of it, you got your sights here, fiber optics, and you get this nice little long with these. You get these grooves that run lengthwise. Adjustable rear sight. You do have a safety on here. The safety is very flat. However, like I said, in the box, they do have an extended safety. So, you can put that on. But I honestly, the way that this works, as heavy as this trigger is in double action, I would just leave the safety down at all times. This here is your extended mag release. You can swap that button out and get different ones, different sizes and different colors. I actually did attempt to take that off. Turns out that thing is Loctited in, so you'll need to take a soldering iron, place it into here and let that heat up, or you're gonna strip it. I've almost stripped that screw and I'm kind of mad about that. Here's the rail on the bottom. Most of your lights will fit. I've tried a few of them, but here's like a Surefire X300. Fits very snug and it looks really good too, if you ask me. On the side, you get these very sexy aluminum grips that are in black, and they got quite a grip on them. Back here, this portion here is a little bit slippery. Very smooth beaver tail, very aggressive texturing on this front strap. I will say, just from dry firing this in the house, my fingers have gotten a lot tougher right here because I'm not used to having checkering like that. Even the SP01 doesn't have checkering like that. And so, I mean, that's good for, getting a good handle on your gun and mitigating recoil. I mean, that's pretty crazy. You got some grooves right here in the front if you want to wrap your finger around the trigger guard. This is probably one of the nicest double action, single action handguns that I've personally had the chance of handling. I haven't tested a lot of guns. In fact, I have limited experience with guns like this. And this right here is where they added the majority of the weight. Like, for example, so if I put my finger right here in the trigger guard, it still wants to lean forward. So center of mass is right in here somewhere. And considering how much stuff we have going on back here, with grip panels and internals and all that stuff, that's pretty cool that the center of mass is like kind of right where the trigger is. So earlier when we were unboxing, I said that it came with all these little buffers here. And these guys go right here. Let me pull this guy out. On your guide rod. And what they do is they act as a shock absorber under recoil. And that accomplishes a couple of different things. Number one, it really reduces the recoil of the gun a little bit, because you won't have metal on metal and you get that sudden shock. And I guess the best way to kind of explain this is, do you remember when you were playing baseball as a kid? Or heck, maybe you were playing softball as an adult and you're using an aluminum bat. And sometimes if the ball contacts the bat in the wrong spot, it sends this shock all the way down into your hands and up your arms. I don't know how to explain it. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever experienced that. So essentially that can happen, especially when you have a metal slide and a metal frame. And so, to kind of reduce that, they got this. So it reduces the shock and a little bit of the recoil, but it also extends the life of your firearm by reducing that shock. On the sights that come with this are obviously fiber optic on the front, and they are blacked out on the back. Something I'm not liking about these sights is how narrow that little notch is. Don't get me wrong, it's great for competition, not so great for self-defense, or it can take a lot of practice to press out and get your sight alignment if you're not used to narrow sights. The rear is, I believe you got elevation adjustment in the rear, but I don't see any windage. They do make windage adjustable rear sights that you can buy, but I don't have one. So one of the reasons why truffle butter is getting a lot more difficult to find in stock is because people have learned that you can make really cool race guns out of them. But you can make really cool race guns out of anything like 1911s and 2011s. As an example, this is a homemade 2011 that I built using Rock Island Armory parts that I bought off eBay. I have an entire build series on it, and if you want to go watch it, you can. Back in late 2019, I reviewed the STI Staccato DVC Omni, which has like an integrated comp and all this stuff. And a buddy let me borrow it so I could do the video on it, and I loved it. But you know what? That dang gun is $4,100. And I wanted the 2011, and I didn't want to pay $4,100. So I started researching 2011s. Lo and behold, they're very difficult to find for less than $2,000. And that's the basic ones. There are some here and there that are 1,500, and they're harder to find. Than Rock Island Armory makes one that is completely a steel frame, but finding it 9mm is next to impossible, especially nowadays. But this gun right here, I built this, homemade. Basically, I sourced all the parts. I don't know if you can find all the parts today, but before the pandemic, I was able to get all the parts and get it all put together for around 1,200 bucks. Now, what makes this thing special, average price on the street, about $1,500. They're ready to go out of the box to shoot competitions with for the most part. People figured out, well, I can get one of these, I can do $300 or $400 worth of upgrades, and I can have a CZ that is just as capable as the $4,100 STI Staccatos. So that's why these are getting harder and harder to find. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm not interested in competition shooting. I'm interested in seeing how this guy would fare for home defense, or maybe even possibly concealed carry, but we'll have to see as this series progresses. This comes in a few different models. They have the double action, single action model, which is this one. They have a single action only model. They have the orange model, which is, I believe, double action, single action, and you might be able to get it as single action only. And then the orange one, has, aside from having orange grips and orange base pad, they got a lot of upgrades, like with the way the barrel is and the trigger, and it costs like $2,000 basically. But that is more competition ready than like your standard Shadow 2s. And then they have an optics ready slide, and we're gonna talk more about that optics ready slide here in a minute. And they are pretty much impossible to find, at least in the United States, for the optics ready one. And there are pros and cons, and we're gonna go into a whole spiel later about red dots, because I got a bone to pick with this. And then they come in different colors. This one's obviously the urban gray, but you can also get it in black. And with the black one, you can get it with blue grips, or you can get it with black grips. And then obviously the orange one comes with orange grips. Now, I don't know if this is loaded or unloaded, but at the spec sheet, it said that this weighs 46.5 ounces. And I don't have my scale on me to tell you, but I can tell you from my hand, it is pretty heavy, which comes out to like 2.9 pounds, almost 3 pounds. It's 10 ounces heavier than the original CZ75, and it's 5 ounces heavier than the SP01. And most of that extra weight is right up here in this dust cover. The trigger on this, now, before we get to this trigger, hang on. I wanna show you this trigger because it's amazing, but for this to make sense, you need to know what my experience with double action, single action guns are. So this was my very first double action, single action gun. This is a CZ P07 Tactical. You know, I've obviously had it completely customized by Primary Machine. They did a ton of slide work to it. It literally has every modification that they offer. I have their compensator, their slide work, their barrel. These are proprietary co-witnessing sights. They integrate into this. You can't get these sights anywhere else, I don't believe. I had them Cerakote the frame gray, and then I have the Cajun Gunworks trigger in this. Interesting thing about this, a lot of people get P07s and they're like, wow, I really like the Omega trigger. And this one has an Omega trigger in it. For me, on the other hand, this has been one of the most atrocious triggers I've ever experienced. And so when I sent it off, they offered a Cajun Gunworks trigger upgrade, and it's still crappy. Like it's a lot lighter, but it is really rough. I want you to see the stutters in my finger as I pull this. Notice how my finger kind of goes like that. I thought it would, you know, smooth out as I broke it in. Not so much. Single action. Not too bad. I'm breaking my own rule here by dry firing a hammer fire without dummy rounds, but that's the trigger reset. We're gonna get the trigger gauge out on this because I think this is important. Let's see what the single action pull is. I honestly don't remember. It's been a long time since I've shot this gun. I'm not gonna help this trigger, but I do have to set it a certain way so it will actually not spin. I totally overpulled that. Okay, that one was, my thumb was in a way. That's about a 3-pound trigger. All right. The double action, I don't know if this thing will read. This thing only goes up to about 8 pounds, and I have a feeling it's gonna go off the charts. Yeah, it's gonna read. I actually ordered a digital. You know, I've been using this since the first day I started YouTube, and I actually just ordered a digital scale. That'll be here soon. But it was about 12 to 13 pounds. I'm assuming it's around 10 pounds now. But it's just, it makes me not like to shoot this gun because of that double action pull. Second gun that I got is the CZ P01, and I actually haven't created a lot of content with this. I got it, it felt great in the hand, and then I went to the range and I was like, this thing, I don't like it. Now, the reason I don't like it, which I just figured out, is I don't like these grip panels. And I figured it out after I got this guy, because this one has thin grip panels. This one has like the contoured ones, so I'm gonna switch these out for some thin ones, and I think I might like it better. Now, with this one, we're not gonna be able to get this one to read on double action either. But if you notice, this one is a lot smoother, and nothing's been done to this. This is just a stock gun. This one's a lot smoother than the P07. Notice how my finger is not stuttering, okay? But it is heavier than that one. So, you know, it could probably use a lighter spring. This is probably coming in about 13, 14 pounds, I'm assuming. And then the single action pull on this is really cool, okay? There it is. Okay, that's probably reading in about 3 pounds. It might be reading about, I don't know, we're gonna have to see. All right, that one came in at just under 4 pounds. I say all that to say this. Didn't really care for this one. I like this one a little bit better, but And I'm assuming once I modified those grips, I think I'm gonna love that one a lot more. But when I got this one, the moment I pulled it out of the box and squeezed the trigger, I was super, super impressed. The double action pull on this, I do believe pulls around 10 pounds. But the way they have the ergos set up on here, it does not feel like it, and it is smooth as truffle butter. And I think that's why I named it truffle butter. What? Now, the interesting thing about this trigger is the initial, getting it to move is kind of hard. Once it's moving, it stays at a consistent weight all the way back. This one is not only hard to get moving, but it actually tends to get heavier when it's right here. It's called stacking. So it's heavy, it's light, it's heavy again. All right, this one, heavy to get started, and then it's heavy back here, and then it's just kind of jerky all over the place. This one It's only heavy in the beginning and it's not that bad. Look at that. Let me reset that. Look, that reset was super nice. It kicks your finger forward. There it is. And this trigger is adjustable. As you can see from that screw, I have not messed with it yet, but it is. And then here's your single action. Take up right there. There's the reset. There it is. Beautiful trigger, very beautiful. Now, the cool thing about the CZ, especially the Shadow 2, is there are a ton of aftermarket upgrades for it. Obviously, you can get lights because this one does have the light rail. There are other CZ competition guns like the Tactical Sport or the AO1s that are just smooth right here. They don't have a place to put a light. There are tons of grip panels for it, and we're gonna talk more about that in a second. And then there are a lot of triggers. But with that said, there are quite a few things that are bugging me about this, and there are quite a few things that I wanna change about this gun. Back up top. All right, so now let's talk about some things I wanna change and some things that are really, really bugging me about the CZ Shadow 2. You know, when we were up close, I was talking about all the different accessories that you can pick up for this. You know, you can get all these different grip panels, you can get all these different safeties, triggers, springs, you can get slide work done on it, all the grip panels, mag bases, mag extensions, all that crazy stuff. Now, there are two things that you can't get for this gun. And it's super freaking annoying. So earlier we were talking about there's an optics ready version available. Now, honestly, unless you know somebody, I couldn't find an optics ready version available anywhere at all. Now, the optics ready version comes optics ready, but it doesn't come with any mounting plates. You have to buy those separately. You know, that's kind of annoying, but you know, I would have been willing to do it. And I was thinking to myself, you know what, that would be awesome if they could mill this slide to accept like the optics ready cover plate that has the integrated dovetail, as well as accept like the standard plates. Then I was talking to a couple of people about this and that mill these slides, and they said, well, truth be told, the optics ready slide actually has different dimensions in the back over here, so you can't actually mill a standard Shadow 2 slide to accept those things. And I was like, well, that's a bummer. So then I started looking for Shadow 2 optic ready slides. And I was gonna see if they were available, see how much they were, and if they were cheap enough, I'd order one. Yeah, you can't find those either. Cajun Gunworks has them, technically. They're out of stock, and there's about a 1-year wait list for that slide. I'm like, well, screw that. I'm not gonna wait a year. I'll wait 6 months for something sometimes. I'll wait 3 months, but a year, now you're pushing it. Because a lot of people buy this gun, you know, for competition use, the thing that I'm struggling with is I want to put a red dot on it, and I want to have backup iron sights, and I want to have suppressor height sights. Problem is, well, there's not that many aftermarket sights solutions. And then the second problem is most people who get a red dot mounted forego the dovetail of the backup iron sights because they're worried about competition shooting. They're not worried about co-witnessing. And it's become a little bit of a dilemma. Now, I am talking with a couple of different machine shops who can, you know, mill this to accept a red dot and to accept backup iron sights. And I will go in, I don't want to mention their name right now because I don't want them to get overloaded with work at the moment, but we will mention them, you know, in future videos of this gun. So that's something I'm working on. The thing is because you can't do modular optics, now I have to make a decision. What red dot do I want to put on it, you know? Now, if I could get it milled for something like a Trijicon RMR, if I went that route, well then I can, you know, run the Holosun 507C and 407C if I so chose to. And that way I could, you know, swap those out and I have a little bit of interchangeability. I actually just got the Holosun 407K, and I have a 507K coming, and I'm working on getting a Trijicon RMR CC. Now, if I mill it for this, then this is basically gonna be the only option that I can do aside from the Shield Sights RMS. I might be able to do a Trijicon RMR CC, but from what I was told from a couple of other machine shops, is their footprint is the same but different, and thus they're not interchangeable. I wasn't aware of that. I assumed when I made this video on this gun, I said they were interchangeable. I'm probably wrong about that, I'm sorry. If I go like 507K, I'm wondering if I can get it milled in such a way that I could just co-witness with the irons that are on the gun right now. That would be kind of cool, but I'm working on that. I'm talking to different machine shops, see what we can figure out, because apparently nobody on YouTube has done this stuff before. Aside from the benefit of having a red dot, to just be able to, acquire your target super fast, the main reason I like red dots on CZs is because in the example of this, their slides are very, very thin and they're really hard to grip. So when you have like a red dot on it, you can just grip it real easy, and it makes manipulating the slide so much better than trying to just manipulate a slide that you can barely get your hands on. The second thing that I want to change is the trigger. Don't get me wrong, this trigger actually feels really good. But if you guys know me and if you've watched any of my videos, I like to put flat triggers into everything. So I began researching, flat triggers for the CZ Shadow 2, and it turns out that 99.9% of them are single action only. Now that's great if it's a competition gun, but remember earlier in the video, I said I would want to set this thing up to either be like a nightstand gun or to maybe even carry it. But I did find one single action, double action, flat face trigger from CZ Custom, and I did pay for it. I just went to their website and ordered it, and strangely enough, their shipping times are stupid expensive, and they're local to me. I should have just went to the shop. It was like 20-something dollars. I had this thing just mailed to me. I don't know what that was about, but whatever. I'll just show it to you. We're gonna do a video on it. I'll show you guys how to install it and stuff. Flat face trigger, and then it comes with a new spring, a new pin, and a new disconnector. I did do a test fit on this, and I got to do some fitting with this disconnector because it won't reset. So, definitely going to do that in the future. We already got it. I just got to figure out how to make it work. Another modification that I might want to do to this is change out the grip panels. Now, I will say just dry firing this in the home, it feels really good. I feel like I can grip it really good. However, I know with aluminum grips over time, especially if you're at the range or you're outside, if your hands are sweating, no matter how grippy aluminum is, your hands are gonna slide. So I'm talking with the guys at Lock Grips, and we're gonna get a few different types of grip panels out just to see which ones we like, which ones we don't like, and go from there. Another thing that I might change, and I haven't 100% decided yet, I might change the color of it. Now you might be saying, well, dude, that thing looks really good, like that urban gray. I don't know how this looks on camera at the moment, but I will say this. It looks kind of gray until you actually put it next to a gray gun. And in person, under sunlight, this looks like they took a little gray and mixed it with FDE. And don't get me wrong, flat dark earth looks really cool in some instances, but this doesn't look gray. Even with this gun, right? This is a urban gray PO1 Omega. Put it next to this thing, it looks a little more flat dark earth. Like I said, it might look different on camera, depending on how I color grade this, but at the same time, it just looks more flat dark earth. I know a lot of people are gonna be mad about that because you're gonna be like, bro, you're gonna ruin it. You're gonna, I've been wanting an urban gray forever. Well, I mean, you can always get your gun Cerakoted urban gray if you want. Now for the holster setup. Now I don't have the holster yet. It's on the way to me. I'll have a link to them at the build list, but they just came out with this new holster. I forgot what it's called. I can't remember off the top of my head. And they've designed this holster system. It's inside the waistband to work with any handgun that's running a Surefire X300. And it's funny, I've been on YouTube now, what is this? This will be our 5th year on YouTube, and I've had all kinds of different weapon lights, and I've never had a Surefire X300. Fits really good, and so when we get the holster, we'll be able to test it, and we'll be able to see, is this gonna be something that will fit that holster, and also will all this weight, actually be something to carry? I don't know. It might not be, but I do know it'll make a fantastic nightstand gun. My prediction for the range. I want to include this section because I wanted to see if my predictions are actually going to match what actually happens. My predictions are it's going to be a very flat shooting gun. I'm predicting that I'm probably going to be a lot more accurate with this than I am with almost any other gun. It'll probably rival my 2011 and 1911s. I do predict that I will be much more accurate with this double action trigger than any other double action trigger that I own, for the reasons that I showed you, when we were up close. My next prediction is, depending, I can't go shooting outside right now because it's 115 degrees. Even if there wasn't fire restrictions, this camera will shut off within 10 minutes of being in the sun because they have overheat protection. But I do predict that when your hands get sweaty, this will slip around. And for that, we're gonna have to get some lock grips or something to kind of overcome that. But let me know your thoughts, guys. What are your thoughts on the CZ Shadow 2? Have you ever fired one? Have you not fired one? What are your predictions in regards to the way that it's gonna shoot? Do you think I'm gonna like it? Do you think I'm gonna dislike it? I think I'm gonna like it, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong many times on this channel before, and I don't think that that's ever gonna end. But anyways, guys, if you're not subscribed, hit the little subscribe button, play ding dong ditch with the like button. But anyways, guys, until next time, I love you. You guys stay sexy.